Hi, I'm Stephanie,
And I'm Katie, and this is the Reading Nook Magic podcast.
and today we have a special guest, Taverlee. She is a practicing witch, author, and temple keeper of the Moon Temple Mystery School.
Hello, nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
So excited to have you here. I have a million questions. I want to preface that I don't know personally a lot about witchcraft, magic, aside from the fantasy aspect of it. So, like, I'm a little green on this, so I might have some newbie questions that hopefully you can shed some light on for our listeners that may have similar ones.
All questions are welcome.
Yeah, I wanted to give that disclaimer because
Yes.
I thought of a bunch of things. I'm like, oh, I want to know.
Yeah.
So
Sounds great. I am an open book, so to speak. Open
Because
book.
actually, what we wanted to start the discussion talking a little bit about your book or just the writing process. So can you share with us a little bit about your journey of becoming an author?
Yes, I would love to, and I love that you have my book behind you. It gives me such inspiration to see my own book. Sacred Magic is behind you. I've been writing for a long time, and I feel like I've been writing informally in magical ways for a long time, or even just simple ways like journaling or writing content for mystery school, or I've just always been drawn to write. And I've done it personally, in such long ways that writing to me became a form of expressing how I feel, even if it's outside of journaling, right? Like to me, the best type of content that you write, whether it's for social media or for, your business, is writing how you feel or sharing stories. And that is something that I've just fallen in love with over the last 20 years. And, I struggle with the date, but sometime I think just before the pandemic, I went into a program to learn how to write a memoir. And so I wrote my witch's memoir, and it was so fantastic. It really taught me how to go deep into memories and explore the idea of what is really true. Because when you do something like writing a memoir, which I never published, by the way, it's still just something I wrote for me, it asks you to look at all the angles, right? All the things, the ways that you view truth versus other people that were in the situations view truth. And also it became like shadow work, like a full experience in shedding shadows, because a memoir is meant to just, capture these moments in time in your life when you experience the most transformation. And of course, a lot of those for all of us starts with trauma or some type of catalyst. And so that really cracked open my desire to write, my love of writing. And in the process of deciding whether or not I was going to actually publish my memoir, I went down the route of, agent querying and all the business side of trying to publish a book. And after 9 months of that, I finally got one response from one group. And, we had a short meeting, we talked a little bit about the memoir, and I could just feel that there was something they weren't asking me or something they weren't telling me. And they asked this question that really just blew my mind. It literally led to where I'm at today. And they said, well, we know authors like you typically have multiple projects in the works. And I said, yeah, I do actually. And they're like, well, tell us about it. And I had just happened to finish an outline for a series of books based upon the elemental direction. And I had it on a piece of paper right next to me on my desk. And I held it up to the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got this whole outline for 4 books I want to write here. And they said, okay, great. We want that first. And I'm like, oh.
you're like, no, but this one's fun.
Yeah, I just had written the outline. So I took a great long pause and I just thought about that for a while. And then, life got busy. And as we do, it's, making a commitment to finishing a book, no matter what route you're going to go to publish it, is a big commitment. So it had been kind of just on the back burner for a while. And then, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, my body just couldn't not write anymore. I had this great gap between writing the memoir and this, and I could feel all these ideas. In fact, I have a board to the right of me of all the ideas of books I want to write that have been brewing for a long time. And I dove into writing the first book. And after my experience of trying to publish my memoir, I had some feelings about going the traditional publishing route. So I didn't even try. I just decided, this is stuff that I teach. I know that my community and I know that people need this medicine. I know it will help people, especially beginner witches or those that are walking the spiritual awakening path. I just wanted to get it out there. So I decided to self-publish it. And I had a great team that, did all the supportive tasks. And January of this year, I published the book. And would you like me to go into the story of where we have gone from January to now? Shall I keep going?
I mean, yeah, I think it's interesting how this. I mean, self-publishing, and then I know that.
Yeah, there's a scene. There's a little plot twist that came into the picture. So I self-published the book. It went very well, and I had a series of launch events, and then I traveled to Colorado for an entire month because I had a new grandbaby arrive. So, I was sort of marketing it, sort of not, sinking in with family. And then when I came back and started to like revamp marketing through a strange twist of events, at an event, I happened to meet a woman that worked for a publishing company, and we connected, and she shared some information, and she said, well, why don't you contact us just in case, your other books, well, there's no harm. And, this was a traditional publisher, and I had no thought of traditionally publishing. And sure enough, I made contact. I made a connection. I talked about what it would be like to publish the series, because no publisher wants 3 out of the 4 books. Really, they would want all 4. So I agreed that I would take book 1 down, and I got offered a multi-book deal with Llewellyn Worldwide. And so that book that's behind you right now is actually no longer.
Now it's a special edition.
Now it's a special edition. And so, yeah, I went into a multi-book deal with Llewellyn. And so now it'll be different, of course. I love Llewellyn as a publisher. They're one of the, top publishers of magic and mystical books. They've been around for a long time. So I feel honored, excited, and nervous, and all of those things. And I'm working on the 2nd book and the 3rd book and the 4th book. So they will be the first book will be re-released under Llewellyn's banner, spring of next year. And then every couple of months, the rest of the series will come out. So what a twisted path,
You were called to do it, and you did it, and everything else kind of just fell into play. And I think, maybe I can't speak for you, but I imagine going through doing it for yourself and based on like this innate calling desire to do it, would you want it to have gone in a different way?
Nope.
Or are you happy that you
Yeah,
did so?
no chance I would want it to go any other way. And I think for me, it's because I learned so much along the way about, the editing process and, excuse me, creating artwork and marketing, and just even as an author. I am a completely different writer than I was even a year ago now, because I've learned so much about my strengths of taking my voice and putting it into word format. You both know I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, I record and live stream a lot of content. So I'm really good at talking about all these concepts, and I've been teaching them for so long that that's natural for me. And transferring that knowledge to the written word, totally different. Right? It's
Right.
like I feel like I'm a beginner again, and I definitely do not claim to know it all about publishing, or let alone self-publishing. But I will say that the process of finishing a book in any capacity and going through any type of editing or review process changes you. Like as a human, it changes you. So I wouldn't have it any other way. In fact, I would say that I wouldn't be here today if I had not self-published and gone through the completion stage, because there's so much mindset work. And I know we'll probably talk about this. There's so much mindset work that goes on inside of you in
Right.
order to and because my book isn't just a prescription, it's not just a list of rituals and spells. I share big, meaningful stories. Part of that came from the experience I had of writing my memoir. I brought some of those really powerful, little condensed versions of the stories into my book. So letting yourself be seen, that was all part of the experience. I like to think of self-publishing my first book as like the warm-up, or it's the scrimmage before the big game. You got to still do the scrimmage, like however you're going to do it. You still got to have those experiences along the way, and then you're more prepared. And I'm way more prepared now to work with a major publisher than I would have been before.
I think about our experience with this in particular. We didn't really have any. We just loved reading, and we wanted to talk about it, and we wanted to have these conversations. And then we met with a professional production company, and it wasn't in the budget. Otherwise, maybe we would have done it. But they could have done everything for us, you know. And we were like, wow, that's interesting. But we're gonna figure it out for ourselves first, right? We're gonna learn how to edit. We're gonna buy editing software. We're gonna, you know, stumble through it. And I don't think we would be here still doing it if we hadn't gone through that same exploration of pushing through and falling and tripping and fumbling through something yourself.
There's an appreciation to knowing the inner working of every little piece, even if down the road that's not what you're doing. You know the process from beginning to end. You can appreciate the people you're working for. You seem excited about Llewellyn, so like that, your appreciation for what they're gonna do for you. Maybe you wouldn't have that before. Just the appreciation of the whole picture.
100%. You know, that is probably some challenges, or could be challenges for a lot of people that want to do things like a podcast or YouTube channel or write a book. Is you have to have the fortitude and the agency to see yourself through the things that are really hard. You know, I mean, if you have the budget to hire people to do it right from the beginning, which really very few people do, you know, maybe if you're famous or very well known in another area of your life, the fortitude to see yourself through that learning curve, you know, that's the difference between something actually coming to fruition out into the world like you're doing in a meaningful way. But it doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
That's the least.
I mean, the fact that you're working with editing software, I mean, you both impress me very much. As a podcaster myself that has a producer, I've done that part before, and I'm like, oh, you're great. You're doing great.
It's a lot.
It is.
We're doing very rudimentary stuff, I'm sure, but you know, it's fun. It's been fun. Have you ever thought about writing anything other than this style book? Any fiction, you know, releasing your memoir? Is it just you see yourself just as an author in terms of your passion to share your knowledge with the world, or do you see yourself maybe branching out into different avenues?
Oh my gosh, yes to all of it. I see myself branching out to so many avenues. I have a couple of different ideas, and when in my spare time, you know, in the last, let's say 2 years or year and a half that I've been writing very consistently, you know, for like as an author, meaning not just the content piece of what I write, I really desire to write in prose. It's very strange. It's the way that my body wants to express, and I've been keeping it. I've been setting a lot of that aside, and I've turned a couple of my prose pieces into like an audio that I'm going to set to binaural beats and release it in my community, because it's just a way that I'm just going to practice and test it out. But yeah, I have a couple of fiction book ideas, and you know, there's a part of me, again, these mindset pieces that we build as we go. I think to myself, have I just boxed myself in a category? Because I'm not just publishing one book, I'm publishing 4, and you know, they're all going to be similar in, you know, storytelling. It's, you know, like I forget the title, the genre that they classify this as, but you know, this is nonfiction work, right? It's like prescriptive nonfiction work, and so it's very specific. And I wonder, will I have the capacity to branch outside of that? And I'll tell you, I have a story that I've been working on that I'm channeling. It's like a channeled message through a particular type of elemental spirit, and I've been writing it already, and it's kind of brewing. I can feel it brewing, but it would be very different than the books that I'm writing now. So that's probably the next one I'll take to market and see how it goes. I'm super curious, you know, like what the reaction will be. And
Things that come out of
yeah.
What's interesting is that you're worried about that a little bit, and that's something we've spoken about too. It's like, yeah, our podcast is primarily romantic fantasy, right, where it started. But we can interview and talk to anyone about anything. It's a podcast, right? And when you're saying it, I'm thinking as my objective listener, oh my gosh, of course you can write whatever you want. Of course you can. So it's just interesting, like the self-doubt within our own head, like, did I pigeonhole myself? Are we stuck? And
I'm
when
like, I want to read other books, not just the romantic. I want to talk about other things.
I love the idea of you talking about different books on the show. And I say that because I've listened to your show before, so I know what you're talking about. I would love for you to do that same style conversation about, you know, different genres. I mean, and look what we're doing here. Of course, I I'm on board with that. So you feel that way about me and I feel that way about you, which tells us it's all, we're all playing with these belief systems that, we're in a box and we have to stay in the box, and fuck the box. Fuck the box.
I agree, because like the whole point would be like if we were doing it for just everybody else, right? Like then I get it. That's where our fear essentially would be stemming from. But we are doing this because we love books. Like I love reading. I want to read all the books. So I don't want to say like, oh no, I have to only do this one, because what if the listeners stop listening? But I don't think that's the case, because I think it's going to translate and come through that's, but we just can't say like we're not doing it just for them. We're doing it for us because it's fun and we want to talk about stuff. So, yeah.
And that's part of producing anything that you're going to take to the world, is if you bring your whole heart into it and you love it, it shows through, no matter if you stay in the box or scribble outside of the box. So yeah, so I want you to fuck the box. I want you both to definitely do this with more books, and I'll do the same. I'm going to be brave. I think that, first of all, any type of, and it's interesting because if you think of how many books are published, we think that there's lots of authors out there that don't struggle with like self-doubt and if their writing's any good, if anybody's going to read it. We think that can't be possible because so many people publish great books all the time. But it's true. It's like this is a new thing. And that's one of the beautiful things about meeting other authors and editors and people in the industry along the way, is it's part of finishing and publishing a book is it takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of being willing to be rejected. It takes a lot of courage for not everybody to love what you have to say.
Yeah, it is really putting yourself out there, as you said earlier, It's brave.
Especially nonfiction. I that's why I think it would be fun to write a fictional book, because I feel like I wouldn't have the same layers of, oh my gosh, the whole world's going to know all this stuff about me, which they already do because I talk about it anyway. But in print form, it's different. I have grandkids, and I'm going to have great grandkids one day when I'm dead. My lineage are going to read these books that share very personal information, and I think to myself, wow, wouldn't you love to have that with your grandmother? Like, wouldn't you like? So if I hold that vision, I'm like, I just got to get over myself. It's not about me.
Well, yeah, and also with fiction too, I have some ideas for sharing elements of my own story and stories of other women, and kind of hiding it inside of a fiction story, right? So the meat and potatoes of the story is real, like sort of based on a true story, based
Love
on
it.
actual events, but it's going to be totally fantasy. So unless you know me, you might not be able to like, was this her? Was this someone else? I don't
love
know.
it. I love truth disguised as fiction. One of my favorite sort of like magical fiction books that I've ever read, that I read often, I return to it probably every year and a half, is the Gaia Codex. Have you ever read that book?
I have not.
I highly recommend it. It gives you a taste of a lot of what's in that book are real practices and real things that I experience in my magical practice, but it's all written as this fictional book, and it makes me giggle, because it's not saying that it's real anywhere along the way, but there are threads of truth in it that just make me happy. So I really think you should write your fictional book and put your story in it.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
What book for me is Brita, the one that wrote The Alchemist. I love reading that book because it's about a girl starting her journey as a witch, and she's told that she has a gift, and there's months of her having to do certain rituals to keep just basically like peeling open the layers so the gifts start flowing without even thinking of it. And I was like, I want to find the list of where I want the actual, like, the real one, like how you say you read it, you apply it. Like, I want to know where he got those rituals from.
Yeah.
I want the real story. I know there's truth to it. I want the real story, but I have come unsuccessful so far.
I love it. Well,
I will find out.
yeah, I think it's really amazing to just even have a book idea and start on it. It changes you. So I recommend it. I tell everybody that I know, if you have an idea for a book, write it. No matter what you do with it, no matter what the outcome is, write it. See it through to your best version of completion, because you will grow so much in the process. You'll learn so much, and then you'll decide. And I hold this desire for me. I mean, writing is now such a part of my my life and my routine and my rituals that I won't ever stop writing. Who knows what books will actually make it to market, but like I said, I've got this whole wall of ideas and I'm not turning my camera to it. I'll just tell you.
Floodway.
Yeah.
Yeah, floodway since you started writing.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so much pouring out of you.
Yeah.
What else do you do? So I mean, obviously people may know who you are, may not, but for the people that don't, what we kind of gave you your intro based on what you told us, but what do you do every day? You're not just solely an author. So tell us
Correct.
a little bit about the rest of your life and
So I own two businesses. One of them is in the social impact entrepreneur space. So I do international nonprofit consulting, and that's pretty much been my entire career. I do service-based work at a high professional level because nonprofits and charitable organizations still run like businesses. So I still do that because I like to keep my finger on the pulse of different international matters. And honestly, I like to do things that feel like they're making a difference in the community outside of just the magic work I'll talk about now. So that's one of my businesses. And then the second one is the Moon Temple Mystery School, where I provide a couple of different paths to learn a combination of spiritual awakening versus witchcraft, because to me, they do cross over. There's a bridge between the actual awakening itself, and then whether or not you want to just sit with the awakening and focus on that universal energy versus the witchcraft path of, okay, take all that awakening you've gone through and utilize it as fuel to create in the way that you want. So I provide those two paths in different ways in Mystery School, and both of the things, all of the things that I do, it's joyful, and it means I balance a lot in the course of a day. My writing takes place at 5 a.m. I start usually my dedicated time is first thing in the morning, and then of course I take a break. I'm a weightlifter by hobby, by passion, for therapy. So I take a break for that, and then I do all of my business work and all of the things I do to run both businesses. I do a lot of one-on-one sessions for entrepreneurs and other companies not just businesses and companies, but high-level leaders that want to understand how to bring these ancient practices into the workplace, such as learning to use intuition to make top high-level business decisions. So I do a lot of coaching, teach a lot of, excuse me, say that again.
That's just right up her alley of like.
Yeah. And I might tell you that there is a place for most people that are still struggling to find their purpose and where to utilize their strengths and gifts and passion to create income. There's a transition that usually happens when you decide fully to go in to discover what the purpose is and how you want to do it, to be able to still hold something over here that creates income while you start to explore over here the things that are bringing you passion and purpose, and then slowly start shifting the scales of where your time is spent. And I know some of the most powerful witches and powerful and intuitive coaches that still keep something business related on the side that really just helps fill their bank account to bring some safety into exploring being an entrepreneur in this area over here. And it is possible to do both. Sometimes it just takes a little time.
Yeah, I think it's when like real estate can feel all consuming without setting the proper boundaries, right? People call you all day, every day, 24/7, showings and all the things that could very easily be 24/7.
Yeah.
So to set the boundaries to a lot like this is my real estate time and this is my other time, and just being more rigid about like that boundary
And allowing yourself to be open to whatever the other avenue is going to bring, fully open to it.
Yeah. Tangent.
I'm all for that for you. And there are so many different ways too that you could do auxiliary business in the real estate industry because you have so many contacts, right? That you can fill different supportive roles, like different training modules. Or I know one of my clients right now is a very well-known high-level photography, and she doesn't actually want to take photos anymore. Like she's tired of traveling and, the work and dealing with the people. So she's built out a full digital product on how to train other photographers on how to build a successful business. And it's brilliant to see that she can still take her expertise in a way to make money, but completely changed her life and brought balance in. So I believe those things are all possible.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a gift for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel lighter already.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So to pivot a little bit, to get back to the greenhorns here, what are some common misconceptions about witches, magic in today's world in terms of it being outside of fantasy and real life? How would you start that conversation with someone who doesn't have a basis?
Well, let me tell you the most commonly asked question I get. Are you ready for this? Well, I'll give you three because two of them are really funny. One of them is serious. I get asked often if I have a broom. And I giggle and say, yes, I have four, which is true. They are ritual tools. And so I don't fly on them in the human world. And so I give these really funny answers to people because I get asked these funny questions. The next question that I get asked the most often, which is serious, and I'm glad that people ask this, is, am I a good witch or a bad witch? And my response is always, it depends on how you classify good versus bad. And that usually takes us to a place of allowing me to sort of, explore where people sit with their beliefs. Here's what I'll tell you is, Hollywood and, the religious doctrine that wanted to take women out of the story and create all the religion based upon, white men, pretty much, to take the rest of them out and take their power away. This has been, fed into us, not just us, but our mothers whose bodies we were carried in, our grandmothers who carried our mothers, our great-grandmothers who carried our grandmothers that carried our mothers. Like, they've been carrying this fear about witchcraft being evil from the religious institutions and from television, right? From all the things for a long time. So most people react to the word witch based upon this wound, which is, I call it a witch wound, and it's prevalent in a lot of us today, no matter if you identify as a witch or not. But this wounding of being seen, being powerful as a woman, this is deep-seated in us. And so when I think about people and how they react to the word witch, if I was to explain it as, it's just someone who has access to how everything is connected and chooses to use that to make their life better. There's a good acronym that people use for witch, which is women in total control of herself, right? If a witch is just sovereignty, just the ability to choose, taking the power, all the power back that has been taken from you, that you have to be a certain way, like fit in a certain type of niche podcast on the internet. If you take that box away and you bring sovereignty in, right? Then anything you do inside that field of sovereignty really is, to me, how I identify as a witch. Now, not all witches are psychics per se, and not all psychics are witches. So like spiritual gifts and psychic gifts are not the same. And not all witches practice traditional witchcraft. What you see today, because witchcraft has become so much more digestible, right? Especially from something like TikTok, that there's a lot of surface level witchcraft that goes on, and it's totally still great and fine, because to me they're just doorways. They're little doorways into finding safe ways to play with your own power, because it's as challenging for people to accept the word witch as it is to accept the words that I use, such as power. That I harness and use power to create every aspect of my life. I harness and use power to write books. I harness and use power to help people develop their side passion and purpose and launch a business from there that makes money from day one, because I know how to access power. That makes people just as uncomfortable as the word witch. So it tells you that it is about that. It's about, being people seeing it as, well, we're supposed to give our power to the government, to our families, to our church. Like, they're the ones. They're the ones in power. They're the ones that get to decide. The big companies, that we work for, they get to decide. When you take that away and you start using that for yourself, it makes people uncomfortable whether or not you even use the word witch. So
Interesting. So I was brought up in a very traditional Irish Catholic household, so like it's very taboo, obviously. I bring that up only because I don't have a visceral reaction to power at all. I love power, intuition, gut feeling, strength. I would undoubtedly be burned at the stake if that was a thing still. Even when I was practicing that religion, I would have been like,
Yeah, you would have.
1,000%. I wouldn't have made it past 12, like, honestly. So it's interesting because every time there's almost like this ingrained fear about the word witch, right? It's like witch, ooh. But then it's like when you just described it, it was like, oh, yes. Like, so it's so interesting how the external influences and how much that propaganda, I will say, has been generationally just pounded into people, right? Like, this is bad, this is dangerous, this is this. And it's like, why? What do you
Yeah.
mean? So I don't know.
I
It's
also
an
think,
interesting
you bring up this little trigger of fear you have. You probably are also feeling that for me, and I'll explain why. So part of this little witch wound that I'm talking about is we not only have, seen for many generations and for many years, women be killed for being accused of being a witch. And we all know, I mean, if you're alive now, you know the witch trials were fake, hoaxes. It was just women that were healers, that used natural medicine, that owned their own land, that created their own prosperity. We know that
outspoken.
right, like we know that all of the witch trials across the whole planet were false. And a lot of countries have retracted those and apologized, all the things. But the thing that we forget in that process is that our ancestors were unlikely the only just witches in that. We were probably persecutors too. So our ancestors probably had to tell on a neighbor that, was being accused of, because their own family would have been persecuted if they didn't. Like, we are also the persecutors. We're not just those that have been persecuted. People always ask me questions like, well, are you one of those witches that they didn't kill? And I said, maybe, but I also might have been one of the ones that, told on my neighbors because I was protecting my family. We all probably played both sides. So your fear could even be, oh, I like this Taverlee woman. I like her. She's giving me this spark of hope. But if she speaks too big and is too outwardly about her practice, she might be in danger. That gets sparked in you as much as it is for yourself, as it is for me as we're talking. And I understand it.
I love the realness of that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a value of telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And yay, this is why we get along so well.
Yeah. And I didn't bring that up because, like, I don't cognitively feel that way at all. I have zero fear or whatever. It's
just
my
there.
upbringing.
It's just there. Well, there's a really amazing path that you could study. The Celtic Mysteries is really powerful. And I have, Irish and Welsh in my background. So I studied and initiated as a Celtic priestess. And some of the practices that I learned in that path to honor my own ancestral lineage is some of the most powerful practices that I've ever experienced. So you probably have a little bit of this, Celtic mystery blood in you.
I just ordered a book about this woman talked about the history of the Celts and how Catholicism in particular came to Ireland. And it's a little bit, maybe it's, who knows, about how they were fairies and they were the protectors of nature and earth, and they went underground. I'm sorry. They went underground. That was the premise, I don't know. I just ordered it.
I love it. I have a list of really good books that I can email you separately to check out that I studied in the Celtic Mysteries that are really fantastic introductions into it. And, Celtic mystery is steeped in mythology, right? It's steeped in storytelling. It's steeped in like awakening Bridget's flame and knowing how to work with the Morgan and calling in Lou, who will oversee, all of the areas where your life can expand. I mean, the Celtic mysteries are deep. I'm excited for you.
I am
Very
excited. That calls to me.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because, again, when we talk about that word witch, it's so different in every tradition. And there's so many practices that have been, hidden behind dogma, right? Or, because of all the years of fear, a lot of witchcraft went underground and we're seeing it bubble up now. And I know there's a lot of witches out there that feel like it's getting, distorted or washed down or, and I know cultural appropriation of different lineages is real and I believe it's real, but I also believe that we're in a time where everybody needs this medicine. And so I like to try to think of, the ways that we can let surface level be an intro, right? We could take things that used to be under lock and key because you had to be special or be born of something, and instead give little bits, like help people awaken to their power in whatever way we can. And that is something I aim to do in the mystery school that I teach in.
And also make it less taboo, more accessible to people to feel comfortable to explore, to feel that it's something real, that it's something I'm at a I don't know.
Yeah, I know what
Just
you mean.
make it
It's
more
accessible, and that they see that I'm a real human. It's interesting because a lot of witchcraft practitioners, embrace the aesthetics of witchcraft,
Right.
right? And that scares a few people because they're like, well, I don't ever want to like dress like that or look like that. I don't ever want to live that way. But to me, witches are all around us all the time, and we all dress and can be whichever way we want. And I'm still also just a human. I still have to pick up after my dog. I still have to do laundry. I'll tell you a funny story. Somebody that I do a lot of work with one-on-one for rituals and spells within her business. We had a meeting last week, and I said to her, oh, she asked to meet earlier. And I said to her, oh, I'll be just a little bit because I just arrived at the grocery store. And she's like, oh, you thinking of you grocery shopping makes me so uncomfortable. She's like, I mean, I know you have to do that stuff. She's like, but every time we talk, we're in such big magic space that I forget that you like do those things. And I'm like, well, my broom can't carry too much, so I got to drive my
Or I was
truck.
thinking of you like wiggling your nose, like you would.
Right, right. But it really, I mean, we've been working together for a really long time, and even now, her reaction to that is, oh yeah, there's still like humanness of regular everyday life, even though I spend a lot of time crossing the veil and in the spirit world and in creation mode through spell work. That but I'm also still just a normal chick.
I love that. It's important.
Yeah,
There's power in being a normal chick too.
there is.
Not all psychics are witches. Witches are psychics. So do you identify you're a psychic mediums? Mediums. I know that's two different things too. So just a little curious about how you identify that.
It's a good question to go down. Well, there's actually like 70 different types of mediums. I mean, all psychics really are mediums in some way, shape, or form. Definitely witches and psychics are not the same word. So we'll just separate those in this conversation. I identify as a seer. I know that my gift as a seer, allows me to channel. It allows me to do readings that could be future predictive or readings that are from the Akashic records of your soul, like seeing your past lives and why it's playing out now. I do readings that are really meant to make change right here and right now, because that's what changes the future. So I prefer to use my seer vision to create more immediate change, because that's more powerfully the way to change the future. And a lot of people that come to me that just have a question, like I have 5 questions I need the answer to, I can just give them the answers right away because my seer vision is very strong. So I just see it. The problem is that doesn't always help. That doesn't always help. I mean, if you were to ask me, okay, like what day am I going to stop doing this thing in business? And I say, okay, December 12th. Well,
Right.
does that help you at all? Because you're going to say, well, what then am I going to do? Right? And what's that going to look like? And how's that going to happen? So, right.
Spiraling.
I need more information.
Right. And so to me, the best way that I can use my seer vision when I'm working for someone is to help them make the changes now, or identify the blocks now that are stopping them from getting to that true level purpose that we've been talking about, that true level purpose of fulfillment, of the flow of abundance, of being able to use your creation energy to have crazy things happen, like meet somebody that gives you a multi-book deal out of the blue that you didn't really seek. Like these crazy ways that you can live that we think only happen in television, they happen in my world all the time, and in my communities and the students I teach. I mean, I work with thousands of people every year, and what some people think is not possible, that they're just miracles, is a normal place in my life. And
Right.
and I say that because seer vision should be focused on how to create something better for the person, right? For myself or the person. So, I mean, I'm all the things. I definitely work with all my psychic gifts. I can feel, I can see, I can know, I can hear, but I really process faster visually and then turn it into words. And as we were saying earlier, I'm really good at speaking. So I'm good to take the picture and verbalize it. And I teach a lot of people in mystery school how to develop a certain leaning they have towards how their psychic gifts work to start, and then branch them out, because we all have these. I mean, you both have intuition very strong. I can already feel it. You know, you both know that you have it, and one of you
Ooh, this is fun.
okay, so Katie, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath in your nose. Open your eyes. You know that little feeling of excitement that you got that I just said your name? You know that you got that little feeling of excitement? That's how your gifts start. They tell you in that exact same spot in your body.
I'm scared of that.
I know. But that's how your gifts are going to come into your body. Because you have to remember, our spiritual gifts come through our human body. We're feeling it inside our body. So it's still our emotions that we feel in other ways, right? So when I say I'm a seer, you know, I see in my mind's eye. But what I see in my mind's eye is directly related to how strongly I can visualize in my human world. Right? Like that inner knowing excitement that you just felt in your body, whether or not we would call it, you know, clear knowing or clear feeling, it's probably clear feeling for you. You get that about all kinds of things all the time. It's going to tell you the yeses, the nos, the green lights, the red lights, the things that you should go all the way the fuck in when you get that excited and you might call it nervous, but that excited feeling, that's your yes. That's the start of your gifts. And Stephanie, okay, close your eyes for a moment. And in your mind's eye, what color do you see right now?
Orange.
Okay. If I was to ask you to tell me where that color sits primarily in your body, what would you say?
My solar plexus.
Okay. Take a really sharp, deep breath in your nose and hold. And now exhale out that part of your solar plexus. Okay, open your eyes. You would be able to develop your seer vision first and foremost, but it would be connected to definitely to your solar plexus. So you have some warrior energy that sits in your solar plexus. So that orange is the little flame that wants to be awakened in your solar plexus. That's warrior energy. You've probably been a warrior in past lives. You've probably...
And she doesn't believe it that she is that today, and I know that she is.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you've probably been a quiet warrior, meaning you're not the one out front. You're the steadfast, loyal one that's always got everybody's back. So you're probably always doing the work behind the scenes. But that's warrior energy. And as a seer, that's smart because you can probably see ahead of whatever thing and person that you're doing or working with. I'm mostly picturing you in a past life, to be honest. So those that you've served in the past as a warrior, you've been able to see the outcome before they could. So you were able to do your warrioring, your protecting duty earlier. Yeah. So there's an example for both of you.
That was thank you for that. That's a gift. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I want everybody to have access to their gifts because as you can see, when you know a little bit more about how your gifts work, then you can focus on learning how to turn them up, and then all your decisions can be made with your gifts. So to me, it's more important. I prefer to teach people how to use their gifts than just give them the future. I mean, I can give them the future. I dropped a date in there for you that you both should hang on to kind of closely.
December 12th.
Yeah. Hang on to that date. Call me on the 13th.
Interesting.
This is so fun.
Well, we just read a book called it's fiction, Bane Witch, and we're actually interviewing that author later today. And Stephanie's like, "You're a Bane Witch," and I was like, "The hell's a Bane Witch?" So I like Google it and and I don't know about all that, but it's just we've just been it's interesting because we've just been having these discussions a lot lately. There's a lot of synchronicity. She's always been very interested in this, right? From what you've told me. I don't know.
Okay, so what witchy questions do you have for me? Ask me the real things that you really want to ask, but you're afraid to ask. Like, ask me the questions that you really want to know.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind is where do I start? Because I feel like I've dabbled and like read so much over probably the past 20 years and have I think you mentioned it. It was just very surface level.
Yeah.
Stayed there and
So
I don't know
the
why.
most important thing to do, and I don't just say this because I am a teacher, but find a teacher. Find someone that's going to tell you exactly what to do so you start learning it for yourself. Reading and listening to, or even reading my books or watching my channels is not enough. You have to do it. Like you have to actually, it's so interesting. People ask me so many questions about spell work and, the classes and stuff that I do, but a very small percent of them actually do it. And so I don't mind. I'll continue to give as much information as I can, but my answer is always, you have to do it. You got to do it. You got to do the spell. You got to see whether or not it worked. I like to teach spells that have measurable outcomes. Like short-term magic is bad magic. We like to create transformational magic that's measurable. So when the spell has come to a conclusion, whether or not it worked, so you know how to refine it. And then you also are going to know how it feels in your body. Because, we all fuck shit up a little bit sometimes in spell work. I've done that plenty. And it just gets sharper and sharper and sharper over the years that, my invitation is to definitely find a teacher. And you can always call me and I can give you like a 30-minute kickstart on where to get started. Just call.
Also, ironically enough, was the next question was how do you find your teacher? And then it sounds silly asking you that being in this situation
Yeah.
because like then you feel pulled because you were kind enough and open enough to share your gift on here and that sometimes like that's where it's like was that the answer to my question? Like,
No,
do
you
I
just
talk
you just received my offer as a way for you to practice receiving blessings. Like receive my offer to hop on a call with you and help you get started as just you practicing receiving blessings, because one of the hardest things that there is for us when we start creating life on our terms is being able to receive it without blocking it. Like I mean, I'm just giving you a gift because I want to help you and I want you to just say thank you. And then, I truly believe that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I am by far not the only really great teacher out there. There's lots. You'll find a way. And for me, they get pieced together, like little parts of the puzzle. Of course, anybody can go to my site. It's moontempleschool.com. And I have a whole bunch of new content coming out soon. So, should sign up for my newsletter because things will be dropped through my email list. But the most powerful program that I have that we teach is the High Priest and the High Priestess path, because it's deep. It takes you month by month through all the elemental tools, shadow work, the healing. You learn like all the body rituals, and it's pretty significant. But call me after, and I'll help you get started. I'll give you some real
okay.
stuff. All right. Now, Katie, what's your burning
Mine's
question?
totally different
Okay.
mindset, which is, I'm sure you've already. So, okay, I don't believe in anything. I would say that I use the word agnostic to leave Catholicism, and my daughter is sitting here listening right now, so I'm having anxiety because she just got home from school. Um,
I apologize to her that I
but
just swore so much. Sorry, daughter.
oh
Okay.
gosh, please,
Okay.
I'm like a drunken sailor. You can't talk from the background. Okay, so okay, even when I was practicing Catholic, I had such a big sense of faith and knowing into whatever was not it. I can't explain this. Like I would have nuns come up to me and be like, "You have a gift," and like that's a really witchy thing for a nun to
Mm-hmm.
say. I would have people of the clergy come up to me and say, "You have this knowing," and I was a child and I didn't know what they were talking about. I went to a non-denominational church and they'd be like, "You have power," and I like, "This is so weird. You're supposed to be like Christian, right?" So then I leave that behind, and I feel I can manipulate.
Keep going. Don't censor.
I feel like I can manipulate life.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um, I have said things that have permanently happened to other
Mm-hmm.
people and in a hectic kind of way. And again, I don't want to have this delusional egomaniac sense of it couldn't be coincidence and these people had, but it scares me because I'm like I believed it in my core and I said it and then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How comfortable are you in this recording for me to do a little exercise with you?
I mean, it's fine because if it's something that's
No,
not appropriate for the
no,
world, I could just,
no.
yeah.
How can we do this
I
to?
know my daughter, my 11-year-old, should leave the room.
Yes.
Okay. Please go be with the puppy, and I will let you have as many cookies as you want.
Okay.
I love you.
Because this is good for everyone. Here's the thing, your experience and that belief you're carrying is not just yours. A lot of us have that. And so I can imagine that you've allowed yourself to be smaller. You've allowed yourself to be less powerful, or you feel like if you acknowledge that you're powerful, that you're not being humble, that you want to be humble and relatable. And so you kind of keep your power in check because you don't want to be too big for your britches or be delusional, right? So let me ask you a couple of series of questions. If I was to tell you that you have the power to speak anything into existence, if you feel it and know it and speak it to be true, and I was to tell you that with certainty, how would you feel?
I guess the only thing I'm thinking of is nervous, and I don't really know
Okay. So why?
how.
Why?
Um, because, well, then you, number one, have no excuse to live a life that's not in alignment with where you're going on the like base level. Just like okay. And also, well, there's a quote that says, "Our greatest fear is that not that we are inadequate; it's that we're powerful beyond all measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." And so to step into, I know I'm a strong person, but like I feel like there's way more that is there. And again, I'm a very cerebral person, so I'm like, okay, you sound like an egomaniac. You're not this all powerful human. However, I think that maybe I believe that deep down I actually am. I can't believe I said that out loud.
So what if I was to tell you that you even thinking that you're an egomaniac for claiming the fact that you have power within you is the patriarchy?
Okay.
You feel like that because you're a woman. You're meant to look, be, and act in a certain way to be a good woman. Okay, I mean, I could feel it. You're wearing a coat around you that says, I want to be a good woman, a good mother. I want to be, a good and successful person. And if I say and own my power and my ability to create my life, I have to take that off. Because not everybody's going to like me and my power. Because it's a reflection to them of where they're not in their power. You already know that. You've experienced it. You've been fully turned on and in your power. And like some people, it's like such a bright light. They're like, no, but it's actually just a reflection of them not being able to be in their power. So when you think that you might be an egomaniac, I want you to know that you've swallowed the matrix pill every time you think that. That's what religion wants you to think. And the other thing is that if you said that if that's true, then I don't have any excuses to how I live my life, that's already the case. This doesn't have to be true for that to be the case. Like, you're in control all the time. And the moment that you start to really acknowledge, and now listen, when I say acknowledge, I don't mean you're shouting it in the microphone. I don't mean that you're shouting it, at the dinner table or in your neighborhood. You just being able to sit with yourself and acknowledge that you are a powerful fucking creator, and whatever you desire, you're going to make happen, even just to yourself every day, will completely change your life in every aspect. There, we just did some little live on the spot working.
That was powerful.
Yeah. And I could feel your resistance to it. And I'm so cerebral and I don't really believe all these things. They're just excuses not to acknowledge your own power. Because you have to believe in power to believe that you have it. You have to believe in energy and manipulation of outcomes to be the case before you can acknowledge that you do that. So for you, it's easier to just keep it all hidden. Like, let's just keep it down.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I guess it was about coming back to before. It's like I believe in power and strength and like love, but then it's like I get lost in I get lost in the uniform because of, I think, my upbringing and just my husband died when my kids were young and just being like, I went to a lot of psychic mediums. I left the church. I was just like, all of it sounds like a really good baseline of what's happening. All of it, all religion, all everything. the baseline understanding I have is that it's the universe trying to understand itself, and it's human beings' way to uniformly document and prescribe and replicate these teachings and whatever, regardless of religion or belief
Yeah,
system that you're in,
I follow.
right? And I feel like they're all probably correct in some capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so that's where I get lost in, like, I don't subscribe to one thing.
Yeah,
So
great.
it's like, what is it?
Great. Do you have to define it?
I guess maybe not.
For you to be powerful and create life the way that you want, do you have to have all those answers?
Probably not.
Great. Everything you just said, I'm like, fuck yeah, great. Yes, 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 and yes.
Fuck yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think that it would be really interesting for you to let go of the need to know that and instead focus on your creative power.
Yeah.
And let that lead you to experiences that will tell you more about what you will define as truth. Because you will define your description of what you think you know now will change the more that you allow your full power. Listen, and I'm not saying you're special. Truly, we all have this. Yours is just a different type of power. You're going to be able to utilize that more easily in an out front way. It will change what you believe about the universe, God, goddess, source, all of it, the more you allow yourself to play with it. I mean, I'm not even going to give you any answers to that because I think that you have to feel it for yourself. And then whether or not you choose to deny your power after that is up to you. I'm happy to come along through the ethers and pull your hair when you're asleep at night and say, "Woman!" I do that sometimes. So somebody pulls your hair in your sleep, you're going to be like, "Tahverlee, I'm fine. I'm listening. I'm going to do that practice of taking care of that thing." Yeah.
Right. It is great.
This has been so amazing.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know. That was like unexpected. I wasn't expecting.
Well, I
it to
wanted
go
people
there,
to experience. I want everyone to know that this is the path of the witch. What we just talked about, you know, it's vast and it's varied, and we are all these individual gems that are, you know, we feel like, you know, we have all this coating around us and then we can't shine like a gem, but we already are. It's just how you choose to handle your own internal ability to create. And that's the work that I do. That's what I do. And that's what I want to write about. And so
and that's what you're teaching the world
that's
about.
what I'm teaching the world about.
Well, I know you have a hard stop at an hour, right? So we hit an hour. So you have time for one more question?
I have
or do you
time for
wanna
one
wrap?
more question. Let's do it.
All right. Why don't you pick?
Yeah, Stephanie, before we meet one-on-one, because I know that's already brewing in your field. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, you just email me. We'll set it up for next week.
Yeah. I guess I just want to know what's next for you. I know you're writing and you're redoing this. What's the next step for you? What does life look like?
I love that question because you're gonna force me to sink into my body for a moment. So, so I desire to spend more time doing things like painting. I know you can see a little bit of what's behind me. I desire to spend more time sinking into the slower pace of life because I know that, you know, the slower you go, the steadier you become. And the steadier you become, actually the faster you move. And because I've approached this like midpoint of my life, I really want every moment to have meaning. And, you know, younger years of my life, I spent the idea of meaning, you know, in all the ways that we all do, in something else or in achieving something or the right title or the right thing. And I know that now those moments of meaning are very different. To me, the moments of meaning are practicing more presence, you know, practicing more time to just enjoy this life that I've created. And, you know, so I guess I could have summarized all that with, I want to stop and smell the roses more. You know, that's a much better way to say it. But I have grandbabies now, and that's another focus, you know, finding a little bit more slowness in my pace. And actually, the best writing I do, the best art that I create, the best business work I do is when I go slow. Yet I don't go slow. I have never moved slow in my life. I'm fast. I'm all fire. Like all my signs are fire. I'm a action-oriented human. And it's interesting. That's what's next for me is finding ways to go slower. Thank you for asking that. That felt good in my body.
Good.
That was a great response. So.
Well, this was great. This was not what I was expecting, and I had no real expectations. So thank you for sharing your gifts with us and yourself. And I really appreciate it. And you've opened my mind to a lot of questions. I know she's on the way, but you definitely, for whatever it's worth, you touched my soul a little bit. And that doesn't happen all the time. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm really glad that it took us a few tries to get this working, because this is what we were meant to record, and it wouldn't have been this before. So now I'm like, oh, now I got it. I understand. And thank you for opening your hearts to me. And I'm so excited about what you're both doing. And I'm encouraging you and cheering you on from afar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Hope so.